Shalom and welcome to the 2019 Winter Doorkeepers Conference. And we have a really exciting night tonight. We are all here, not just me tonight, but I am here with my very dear friends, all people who I fellowship with on Sabbath and on the feast. We're here in Central Michigan, kind of spread out. You think, Ann, she's got a fellowship. It's awesome. She gets to be by all these people. But honestly, I don't really live that close to any of them. And some of us, we only get to see each other for the feast and maybe a couple other special times. And so we do understand, but we also know that it's really important to get together for the feast. We're going to talk about each of the feasts of Leviticus 23. So if you want to follow along from your Bible, open to Leviticus 23 because it contains the meat of how to celebrate the feast. There's a lot more, and you can search that out for yourself. I have a book that is available for free in the goodie bag if you would like to learn about the feasts, and you can go there. It's called The Biblical Feasts, I think. So anyway, what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce my friends and tell you a little bit about each one, and I'm not going to mute you guys yet. Okay, you're still quiet. I'm just going to wave at me when I say your name. So first we have Rachel. Yay. Hi, Rachel. Rachel is the newest one to keeping Torah. And so I would really love you to hear her opinions. She has 5 kids. They're young. She has twins. She's a busy mom. They have a farm. And so she's going to have some great ideas for you guys. Then in the middle, we have Katie Hearn. Can you wave? Yep. You guys know Katie Hearn. She's going to be speaking tomorrow in our sessions. But Katie Hearn has 15 kids. She's been celebrating the feast since probably 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. I'll let her correct me. 7 probably, and I think. And then we have Dell, and I forgot to ask Dell. Oh, hi, Dell. Wave. There you go. Dell has 2 kids left at home, and 3 more that are older and out of the house. And she is like our old hand here, if I can say that about you, Dell. She is the one that has so much experience, and honestly, her ideas are things I've never thought of. So I love the variety in this group. So I won't leave them on mute the whole time. I'm going to start. We're going to go in order of the feasts that are in Leviticus 23. We're going to skip over the Sabbath, not because it's not important, but we've talked about that one a lot. So we're going to get going on Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And in a nutshell, we're supposed to eat unleavened bread for a whole week and clean all the leaven out of our houses. And then Passover is beautiful because it represents Yeshua and what he's done for us. He's the lamb whose blood was shed for us. So Rachel, I'm going to unmute you, I think, if I know how. And there we go. Rachel, how many years have you been doing Passover with your family?
About 3 years now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You sound great. And what was it like your first time? Did you think we were all crazy?
Well, actually, my first thought about the feast was I just started meeting some people I knew that were actually doing it, and I was like, wow, because I'd read about it before in scripture, and I thought, okay, maybe people actually are doing these, because I had already had the question in my mind, okay, these are in the Bible, so why are we not doing them, or why is no one doing them? But nobody is, so there must be a reason. So I guess I was pretty open to it from the start as far as doing the feasts, for the most part.
I hope it's okay to say this. One of the things I thought about for the feast is I used to celebrate Christmas and Easter, and we would go all out. We would decorate the house from top to bottom. I don't know how many Christmas trees we had, inside, outside, the lights, everything. And we had activities planned for a good 4 to 6 weeks. We had programs that our kids were in. And I was thinking about it this year. I love the biblical feast, but I want to get all 5 senses. I want things to smell good, and I want them to taste good. And I want all of these things because I want to instill memories in my children. And I understand it that the senses bring in memories. So, Rachel, I'm going to make you get on again.
Okay.
what are some things you've put into Passover to kind of make it memorable for your kids? And you can
Well,
say anything else you want to say.
okay. All righty. Well, there's several things that we've incorporated just to be fun, and one is just to make everything really pretty, like having white table covers and special plates and, you know, cups, and learning how to do them disposable so it makes things way easier, which I would totally recommend. Like I did fancy white table covers last year, and I would definitely do disposable ones if I could redo it. But one of my favorite things for the kids was that we had these little envelopes that we would make of each plague that we would go through. So we'd go through our Haggadah and we would go through the Exodus story, but that gave them something fun to do that, you know, so they could look at and touch. And it really can range from like going all out. Like I even got plastic frogs one year, little flies, grasshoppers. We put like Kool-Aid dye stuff in the water to make it turn red. I mean, all kinds of fun things. And so that was super fun for them. And then they got to really look forward to, ooh, I get to open an envelope. And it was so fun for them. And it could be, though, as simple as just putting pictures in there or doing little coloring cutouts or anything along those lines. And I do think in one of our links that we'll be talking about later, there's some of those even available for printout, so that would be cool. But yeah, that was one fun thing that we did for the kids as we went through the story. I don't know if this is a good place to say that, but I also have on my website just what I've worked through myself as far as my ideas and stuff that we've done, and some pictures of last year's, which was super pretty, just on there. So
If I could interrupt you, maybe we could ask one of my daughters running the tech if they could put a link to that in the chat, and then people could go to that now if they wanted while they were listening.
Yeah, I could too, even. But
all right. I wanted to let me ask Dell. Dell, what do you think? What has been the most memorable Passover you've ever had?
Well, if you ask different members of my family, they're going to say different things. And that's what I wanted to start out pointing out is what's memorable to one member of the family may not be to another. And so before we set out to do any of the celebrations, I like to interview the members of the family and say, okay, what's going to make the holiday a holiday for you? My husband's big on anticipation. And so there's got to be some buildup and lead in, and he's got to feel it coming before it gets there. And that's particularly hard because he's on the road a lot. But the same's true with my children. You know, they've got to feel it leading up. So waiting until Passover to do some of this stuff can be kind of tough, or with any of the feasts. But as far as some ideas that are fun for younger kids, I've been doing this. I was trying to figure out what year we started. I think the first year that we did anything was roughly around 2007. I think it was just before Shannon was born. And some tangibles that are going to depend on whether we have mostly adults joining us or if we have kids joining us. And the kid activities, things like we've painted our door. We have lots of doorways in our house. And so we cut up pieces of white art paper and taped them up around the doorways. And one year we just used red markers to put blood on the doorway with red marker. Another year they actually wanted to try a liquid. So we tried food coloring and pastry brushes. And it was messy and it didn't work. It wasn't satisfactory, but you know, we tried. The plague fun at the table that has been successful each year, and it kind of doesn't matter what age group we have. We have certain Passover glasses that we use, and I put a plate or some kind of a larger bowl underneath them, and we always overfill our glasses, and because it's the hope for the life of, you know, abundance overflowing, this whole bit, and they just really get a big kick out of this whole bread and wine, and they're allowed to make a mess, with their drink at Passover. And if it spills, it's just not the end of the world. So I'm with Rachel. Disposable's good. Simple finger foods have been, some years, simple finger foods are the thing to do because we want to eat it in haste. So our belt is tied, our shoes are on, we've got a staff. And the big deal at that celebration at that year was about how we're eating it in haste. We've got a backpack sitting by the door. Why would we be eating it in haste? Whereas the years that it's a fancy dinner, we're not doing so much of the eating it in haste. The years where adults are participating with us, we do more of the regular Haggadah that's printed, that includes the gospel record, and we have an afikomen and the looking for the yeast. I like the symbolism with the afikomen, and that being the body of Yeshua. When there aren't guests, we've had 2 years that there were not any guests, and it was just our family. And so rather than the telling of the story, I used that opportunity to have the kids tell the story. And so Dusty and Shannon, through Legos, did the entire Exodus story. And then last year did it with puppets and a soundtrack. I mean, they had it all done up. So that was really kind of cool too. I guess I'll pass it off.
I'm getting ideas, and that's amazing. We started the same year, Del. That's pretty cool. Our first Passover, our first feast of any kind was Passover 2007. That's pretty cool. But I'm not as creative as you are. I can tell you that right now. These are awesome. Katie Hearn, did you want to add anything? And maybe, Katie, you have extremes of ages. You have little ones, really little, and you have adults that are, with you at Passover. Could you add anything about that?
That's exactly what I was thinking of adding. I do have a lot of kids, and I have little kids, and I have big kids. And like you said, we've only been doing the feasts officially for 5 years. But what I wanted to bring up was the 2 years before that, we were kind of playing feast, and we were learning about them in school, but we weren't really doing them. Does that make any sense? And that's what I wanted to say. If you're listening, if you're watching right now and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel overwhelmed thinking about this, don't feel overwhelmed. Just take it 1 year at a time. Like Del and Rachel said, some years are fancy, some years are fun, some years are silly. Some years we've just acted out the Exodus story. Other years we've been really official with guests. But those first couple of years, I mean, honestly, I would say we were just playing. We were kind of like kids playing house. And we just would get out, we would get some crackers and say it's, unleavened bread, and we got some juice out. It was very, very much like having a tea party with a little kid, So don't feel overwhelmed. Just read those scriptures and do what they say at the very baseline, and then build from there each year, having fun and being creative.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I totally agree. And I just had to share this. Last year, our Passover, we got stranded in Missouri because our car broke down, and we pulled into town literally an hour before Passover was supposed to start, had no food ready, nothing. And we went to the local grocery store, grabbed stuff, came home, and I had kids falling asleep during the meal because we had driven so hard. But you know what? It's memories, and it really, to me, laid in the idea that they were traveling right after that, and they must have been exhausted. And that's what it's about. It's a teaching tool like no other. Now, can we talk about the whole week of unleavened bread? Because it's full of so much richness, and I know we're not doing justice to these, but I have a friend who says, I can't cook. I can't even do it because I can't make my own unleavened bread. Rachel, you are like a fantastic homemaker. I can say, at least in my opinion, I think you are. Have you done any fun things during that week, especially with, I'm putting you on the spot again,
Sorry. Yeah, well, you were mentioning unleavened bread, and I would definitely not call myself a cook or a chef by any means. In fact, the cooking part freaks me out maybe the most. But we did make our own matzah, and it was not hard, and the kids loved it. I mean, it really is quite easy. I mean, it's like flour, water, and salt, literally. You just can roll it out flat, poke holes in it, stick it in the oven. It's super easy. So, if the stores are out of matzah and you're like last minute prep, have nothing, it's not that hard to make. So no freaking out. Literally, it's just bread without yeast in it, right? So yeah, that was one thing we did, and I will probably do it again this year because the kids like making it, and there's symbolism to that, and them being able to make it and be a part of it. And then later on, going off and finding a piece of it and having the holes to look at, just a thought about how Yeshua was pierced, right? And there's so many cool things like that you can do in there. So yeah, leavened bread is super fun. Now, when I was going through these this time, and I'm going to share just a second about, because I am more of a newbie. When I first came into this, I think I had a little bit of this dread, like, oh no, I got to do these right. I have to do them just perfect. I might do them wrong. Honestly, you can't really do them wrong, because the feasts, and as I'm thinking about this stuff in prep, they're just remembrances of what Yehovah's done. These are remembrances of what he's done in your life and what you've experienced, and you're just celebrating that, and just remembering how he brought them out of Egypt. So, when we're getting ready for Passover, spring cleaning our house, it's super easy. Most people spring clean. I think that's got to be where it came from originally, right? So while we're doing that and we're getting rid of stuff, we're just thinking about doing that on the inside and doing that in our own hearts. And so we're getting rid of stuff we don't need in the house. We're cleaning it, getting rid of whatever, movies, books that we're like, how did that get there? And so we're remembering that even, during the whole unleavened bread feast. We're just going through and just considering things, okay, what is in our life that we don't need, that's holding us back? Where's the leaven? Because that's really what it is. It's a picture of that happening in our lives. I just thought I'd put a little thing about that in there.
No, that's fantastic. And I think the idea that it is a picture is so important for all of these feasts. Everything points to him, but it's an object lesson and we're just big kids too. And when we have to stop being so grown up all the time and can actually start getting down on the level of our little ones and trying to help them understand it, suddenly everything is more clear to us too. Del, did you have anything you wanted to add on this one?
Well, I'll just throw in there for grins. During the week of unleavened bread, sometimes we take the opportunity to do object lessons that are leaning towards getting the leaven out. And some years that's been with a focus that uses the themes that played out during the plague. So, we're going to get rid of jumping to conclusions like the frogs. We're going to get rid of those cattle. So our gluttony, is that a problem? Kind of giving us a picture, not that the cattle was about gluttony, but it just gives us a picture of something that we might have to work on and purge out of our own lives during the season of unleavened bread. We've had object lessons that focused about, everybody has a price. You hear that in our culture. And Judas had a price. It was 30 pieces. He regretted it later, but they've had the opportunity to, kind of feel, what does that feel like? And then we had to figure out with math, well, what did that buy then? What's that worth now? What can I buy now for 30 pieces of silver? Gee, would you betray your best friend, your God, for 30 pieces of silver so you can buy a car? That kind of stuff. But that's all.
I remember why I had you on. You've done things so cool, and I don't ever think about. So that's fabulous. Del, do you count the days between, up to Shavuot? Do you count the Omer? Do you guys do that in your house?
Yes, we do. Beginning with first fruits. First fruits is kind of a big day too. I don't know if you wanted me to talk about the first fruits before the counting of the Omer part,
Feel
but we
free.
do. Yes.
Feel free.
Okay. Something that we did for years and years and years, and actually last year is the first time we didn't do it, and my daughter mentioned that she regretted it, so I've got to figure out how to work it back in. And this came from the, wanting to go and do a hide and seek kind of thing. And so I had fruit cutouts, little strawberries, bananas, oranges, watermelons, whatever, and taped to the back of them a description of a virtue. So love, faithfulness, joy, hope, these kinds of things, fruits of the spirit sorts of stuff, and other virtues that you find in the scriptures. And I would hide these fruit virtues out about in the yard, and the kids would go out and find them all, collect them, bring them into the house after having a fruit harvest, and then read them in the group, whoever is in the living room. Now, there may be adults that are present. They didn't participate in the harvest, but they're going to get to hear what those virtues were. So the children will read the virtues, and then the children will pick someone in the room that has mentored, that is showing that virtue to them. And so then the child gives that adult a piece of candy. The adult who showed the virtue gets the award, not the kid who found the piece of paper. And she dug that. So anyway, that was our first fruits thing. But yes, we do count the Omer for Shavuot, and the past year or so, that's been with cans of silly string. So beginning at the Feast of First Fruits, after we've done our little bit with talking about virtues, we put up our first can of silly string. And after 50 days, and we count the official Omer, this is day 1 of week 1, this whole bit. Every single day they put up a new can, and after 50 days you have 50 cans of silly string, and Shavuot is a big silly string blowout.
That is awesome. That is so awesome. And I missed it last year because I got sick, and I'm really looking forward to it. So don't disappoint me, Zell.
Okay.
Katie Hearn, do you want to share anything about what you guys do for first fruits or counting the Omer? Oops. There. I don't know if I've got her muted or what.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry. So Dell brought the silly string to my house this year, and we had a blast. We shot and killed everyone with silly string. It was a great time. For first fruits, we typically we kind of, I'm going to actually say it. We do what we did at Easter on first fruits. We never did really Easter eggs or anything like that, so it wasn't like a big change. We did Resurrection Sunday, so we just flipped it over to first fruits when we became aware that that was a holiday. We didn't know it before, so we moved it over. So we have our big dinner on that day. We do have our Passover dinner first, but we have a family dinner on first fruits too. And sometimes you guys all are with us, our church and friends and stuff. We have a big, big dinner. We've also had worship and music on first fruits. And then we count the Omer, and we've done lots of different things. We've done the candy, we've done the, putting numbers up. We've done it all kinds of ways. And a lot of times we forget days.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Sorry about that. I muted. I wanted to give Rachel a chance to share if she does anything for first fruits or counting up fruits.
Okay. Am I on?
Yeah.
Well, it's cool hearing everybody's ideas. So I think I'm going to be the one on here that have a little different idea.
That's
So, yeah, the majority of what I've spent probably my most time doing is Passover stuff. There's so much to do, fun stuff. We haven't done a whole lot with counting the Omer and first fruits, kind of figuring that one out. But my understanding has come to be like how to make it kind of practical for us is to just kind of spend time thanking God for all the things that he's done in our life and the ways that he's blessed us. Because kind of like how he gave, you know, the Israelites are reaping the first fruits. It's kind of like they've received the promises. So things that I spend our time on. So we'll, first of all, the first day of first fruits, I usually let the kids stay up all night. And because that just makes it super fun. So I let them stay up all night technically, and they're allowed to read scripture all night because that's great. But also we'll watch videos about like God's word being made. So like the Gutenberg press or the Reformation or William Tyndale or even other cool stuff. Or we'll, yeah, so stuff like that. And for each day, like going through the different days, we'll try to spend time going through journal stuff or diary stuff and recounting specific things, trying to come up with a fresh thing every day of like, what's God done, you know, for us this year? What has he done now? And so just kind of, at least for a little bit every day, thinking of something, offering a praise to him, you know, which is what it's about. Getting new insights from his word. So to me, it's kind of like a celebration of that. So we try to do some of that each day, just kind of like counting up all the new good promises and little things that he does for us all year. So.
Oops. I wanted to take sorry, guys. I wanted to take a second and also share Amy Gunther from Torah Sisters Magazine. It's torahsistersmagazine.com. She's part of our group, but she wasn't able to be on tonight, but she worked really hard this afternoon. Guys, like less than an hour ago, she just put out a bundle and it's free. And you can go, it's got a whole big bundle of activities, including a Haggadah for children and just everything for Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And you can go to TorahSistersMagazine.com. And I think we're going to have a link to that for you as well. So, all right. Well, I just wanted to share real quick. Oops, I'll take it off of you, Rachel. Sorry. I wanted to share real quick my two favorite things. And if you guys, when you be thinking too, because I want you to think as a mom, what is your favorite thing? And we're going to go on to the next feast too, okay? But my favorite thing about Passover and unleavened bread, and I know this sounds a little bit odd. Well, maybe it's not that odd. Amy Gunther had the idea of taking a long red cloth and putting it over the door, and Dell talked about painting their door. That's my favorite thing on Passover. My favorite thing on first fruits is just talking about the resurrection. I talked about this in my previous video, so I won't bore you, but the resurrection is huge to me. I love to think about it and all of the benefits that come with it. And then for Shavuot, which is also, I used to call it Pentecost, and I grew up learning about this feast, but I never knew that we were supposed to do it. And for Shavuot, the thing that is so amazing to me is that we get the down payment of the Spirit of God in our lives. So while we do not have all the benefits coming to us someday, we have so much. And I think every year, every Shavuot, I learn more about how much he has given us by giving us his Spirit. Dell, you have some really amazing things that you concentrate on for all of the feasts, but I was with you a little bit last Shavuot. I lost my voice halfway through that day, and so I didn't get to finish the day, but share some of the things that are special for your family on that day. Okay, Dal, we can't hear you. Hold on one second. We're going to work on your microphone, okay? Let's try that again. Okay, try, Dal. No, I'm not hearing
Am I here now?
There we go.
Am I here now?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you.
Well, it's all my fault. It was my end. What can I say? My technical difficulties with my own finger. Anyway, Shavuot specifically is the one you're wanting me to speak about now. Some of the themes that we've used in the past. are looking at the analogy of milk versus meat. That, you know, when you don't know much, you're going to be just being able to be fed like babies. Paul talks about that in the scripture. And then later you're ready for the meat. It's kind of funny saying that after your talk about the bread. But that is a focus that we do at Shavuot or have in the past. Another one is exploring the leavened loaves. You've got these 2 leavened loaves that show up at Shavuot after all of this bit of being unleavened. Now we're going to take into the presence 2 leavened loaves. What's that all about? And my daughter really picked up on, wait a minute, didn't the little kid bring leavened loaves and fishes to Jesus? And so she saw that as a good opportunity to have fish sandwiches on hamburger buns, because then it looked like, you know, 2 loaves with fish in the middle. Of course, there's a giving focus. And so with the kids, part of our education process is every time they're given allowance, they have to set some aside that's for their tithing. And the feast times are when they have the opportunity to take that out and make a big decision on what they want this to go to, what they're going to do their giving and what that's about. And then Shavuot falls in with all the rest of them. It's got to have some special music and special food in order to make it stand out to be a holiday.
Fantastic. Yeah. And they're so musical. Of all of you, okay, I'm looking at all of you and you're all musical. Katie, I'll pick on you just because. What would you say to a mom that's not musical? I think music is huge on the feast. What would you say to someone that's not musical? It's not like we can get Christmas CDs, you know, and put them for Shavuot.
Right. Well, you know, that's not quite right, but we can find music that is about Shavuot. And we can, you know, we have so many resources. We have YouTube, we have Pandora, we have all these resources. And even, you don't have to be musical to have music. You asked what our favorite thing was, and I was thinking about Shavuot and also First Fruits, in that I love the redemption music at First Fruits, and I love the music that we sing we used to sing at Pentecost, and now we sing it at the same time. We just call it Shavuot. And we don't have to be able to sing it. We can just play it on a device if we're not musical. And just because I might not be the most musical doesn't mean my kids aren't. And we can always try all kinds of different things.
Yeah, I think that also knowing that those feasts are coming year after year after year, and not only in the area of music, but recipes and decorations, and like Del said, with giving, to constantly be looking ahead to the next feast. You know you're going to have it. It's like Sabbath. You get it every 7 days, but that doesn't mean we can't improve on it and work to improve our skills. And if we aren't musical today, that doesn't mean in 10 years from now you might not be musical. And that's something that, you know, and that's just the area of music. I'm not the best cook, but it doesn't mean in 10 years from now, maybe. You never know. Maybe. All right. So is there anything anyone wants to add? Wave at me if you want to add something on those feasts. And if not, we're going to go on towards the fall. Anything? Okay, they're all being so quiet. All right, we're going to go on. Okay, so we have the long summer, and sometimes I just cannot believe how fast fall rolls around. And it comes with it the sadness, because that means winter's coming. But it also brings with it this excitement, because to me, I love the fall feast more than anything else. I have so many reasons for loving them, but I won't talk. So Rachel, I'm going to pick on you again. What's your favorite thing about the fall? We can start with any of them. Which one do you want to talk about?
Well, trumpets is first, right? First thing that comes to mind is, you know, we made trumpets out of paper mache and little bazookas. Anyways, that was kind of fun.
Well, she shared with me. I'm sorry. You. Sorry. She shared them with our family, and we made them this year too. And those things really work. If you guys need a a link to that craft. It's an awesome one. Okay, I'll be quiet and let you talk.
Yeah, I could probably find it and put it on there. But yeah, still a little new at finding a whole lot of stuff to do for those feasts. But yeah, we've done all kinds of fun stuff, and blowing trumpets and, you know, any trumpet, any noisemaker, I mean, is super fun for kids and super easy. You can always find something to do that with. Just remembering, you know, the call and remembering, yeah, to do that. So we have trumpets and am I can't hear anything.
Sorry.
Oh.
Why did I think it? I'm sorry. I'm getting tired and not running the mics right. Dell, before she goes on to Yom Kippur, because it's going to be a big change, let's go to Dell and see if she has things she does for Feast of Trumpets.
Well, Feast of Trumpets, one of the things that we like to add to the blowing is that we like to blow it in some rhythms. So the rhythm that's a warning, you know, so you have your 9 staccato notes, or your blowing that's the long one, the Tekiah Gadol or whatever it is. Anyway, I have them written on a piece of paper, and I look it up when it's important at that feast. I don't have it memorized. All these years, people, I don't have it memorized, so don't pressure yourself. We like listening to upbeat music that pertains to Yeshua's return, but we also are looking at the anticipation of his first coming, because our family observes the birth of Yeshua during Tabernacle. So Feast of Trumpets, we're kind of looking at it as the heralding of when the hark the herald angels sing. So we're adding all those old beloved hymns, changed up some of the words a little bit, and then we sing those every night in between trumpets and tabernacles, kind of with the anticipation, getting ourselves going. And we try and scooch it up a little bit before trumpets as well. I tried breaking this into sound, taste, sight, and touch, because you had mentioned you wanted to reach those areas. So in sound, I also make sure to look for a little bluegrass, because there's just nothing like a little bit of a banjo to make it festive. And taste, food-wise, shoot, anything can be a crescent. You know, you could cut peanut butter sandwiches in a circle and half of it gone, and you have your crescent food. After your moon sighting, then you can serve trumpet cookies, because you're not going to blow the trumpet until, you know, after you've seen the moon, so everybody can eat them and then have the trumpet cookies. With sight, it's also a time we're going to bring in our fall decor. So trumpets is part of building the anticipation. We're going to start putting all those decorations out. And as far as the touch goes, crafts that we're going to do with the kids, the stuff that Rachel's already mentioned, maybe adding some rain sticks. Those are fun to make with the paper towel holders, toothpicks, and rice. And on Feast of Trumpets, we've painted little glass votives and with candles in them, and talked about the parable of the 10 virgins, because you're waiting for him to come, that sort of thing. But that's all.
That was fantastic. I'm going to have to watch this video over and over again just to remember all your ideas. I have celebrated the last few Feasts of Trumpets over at the Hearns house. One year we had, 70 people in your living room, and it was pouring rain. We went over there because they have a view of the sky so we could watch for the moon. And then we were stuck inside the house. Katie, can you tell what you did that night? We couldn't go out and see the moon. Can you tell about it?
So typically we host the Feast of Trumpets at our house, and we are outside, and the first person, the first adult and the first child who sights the crescent moon and shouts it out gets a prize. Well, I knew it was overcast. I could tell the day wasn't going to work out. It was muddy. It was wet. It was yuck. So what I did was I made a bunch of crescent moons out of paper, and I put them up all over my house, and they had to go hunting for where I had them. And the people who found, I think there was a certain number, it was like a dozen or something that I hid. The first person that cited them all, adult and child, and told me where they were, won.
honestly, that night was so loud inside that house, but it's supposed to be loud, right? It's the feast of shouting. We really did. And we always sing really loud songs. It's awesome. Yeah, I love that feast. Okay, now we have 10 days to get ready for what is it feels to me, I'm just going to be very honest with you guys. It feels to me sometimes like the breaks go on and the next one's not even called a feast. It's called a day of covering, a day of humbling ourselves. And sometimes I admit, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then by the end of the 24 hours, I'm so glad I did it. But I never feel that way going in. Rachel, have anything you would like to share about Day of Atonement or Yom Kippur?
Yeah, so Day of Atonement, kind of like what you were saying. I'll tell you what we did. It would be a time where I would actually do the fasting thing sometimes, though it's not so much about not eating food as it is introspection and looking at your life and confession of sin and all. But I did make my kids fast one day, and it was torture. We usually just have little snack stuff, and we don't make eating a big thing. So I'm not, advocating that you force your kids to fast every year. And my mom really got on me for it too. I'm like, you know what? Little kids in India don't eat sometimes all the time. So of all the days, we can take one day and remember other people less fortunate. And so we will also do stuff like remember stuff from Voice of the Martyrs, remember other brothers and sisters, other places in the world who are suffering, because we are to remember them. And I think this is one of those days that's a great day to remember those things. For whatever reason, one of our favorite things to watch, at least at the end of like that first day, was Pilgrim's Progress. And it was great for the kids. It's not super gruesome or anything, but it's great to reflect on what our journey to the celestial city is like. And there's so many cool just object lessons, talking about enduring to the end, because that is a picture of the testing time, the trying time, however you want to look at it. And so we will do some of those things. And yes, though, I do think after going through those times, the afterward part is just that much better. So it is good to get through it, and there is a reward, I think, for it. So that's the majority of what I have.
Amen. Yeah, I've tried to really focus on this day. Sometimes as a mom, I love to get alone with the Father and spend time with him, but he's been really convicting me that, you got me all the time. These kids need to learn from this day, and it's about teaching them. Del, can you share some of the things that you've learned on this day? I don't know if I got your sound right. Oh, there we are.
I'm here. Well, I don't know that I want to elaborate what all I've learned on that day, but I can tell you about some of the things that we have done in our efforts to learn. It's a day that we visit the story of Joseph a lot, talking about him as the suffering servant and his return later, the whole setup with him being the king. This last year, we really kind of drew back and we're looking at, so what does this whole afflict your soul mean? What is this afflicting ourselves bit? We don't like the picture of, self, torturing or whatever. So what is this afflict yourself? And the whole fast thing, there's several members of my family that just absolutely would not work for health reasons or sanity or whatever, just would not work. So we decided that afflicting them meant not having anything necessarily satisfactory that they would choose. So that's beans and rice day. And so on Yom Kippur, it's beans and rice. And this past year, for a little bit of a change of pace, we were looking at the book of Revelation and talking about that picture in the heavenlies. And well, I'd like to be in that group that's in white robes. So we all wore white, and discussed that particular scripture. And it also helped us remember not to do anything that would make us get dirty.
That's awesome. I'm telling you guys, I'm going to save this video and watch it again. Katie Hearn, tell me something special about you for Yom Kippur.
Hold on. Where am I? Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we pretty much do fast as a family for Yom Kippur, and one of the things I wanted to say was Anne mentioned her book, The Biblical Feasts, and before she actually published that book, even in PDF form, I had a copy of it because she wrote it before that. And we've used it every year since we've really officially done the feast. And we like to start reading it every year, a week or two before the next feast, so that we're reminding our kids why we're doing what we're doing. So that we have something, we're not just like, oh, here, you know. So before trumpets even comes, we've already overviewed trumpets, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. So they're already prepared. They're already anticipating it. And we prepare them that there is a day of affliction, that it's a reminder that Yeshua was afflicted for us. And he suffered and he died for our sins. And I love that thing that Dell just said. I'm doing that one next year with the white robes and not getting dirty thing. But we do ask our kids to fast. We, like Rachel, we don't like beat them up over the head. I put out fresh fruit and nuts. If somebody, is going to pass out or something, they can get a snack. But for the most part, we don't. I'm not like you, Ann. I get excited about that day. I get excited to remember that someone loved me enough to die for me, and I can remember that. So it's a really exciting day for me.
Well, I always like it by the end, and obviously I must battle my appetite maybe more than you do. But okay. So one of the things I love about Yom Kippur is that and I didn't ask you, I hope I didn't cut anyone off. One of the things I love is that every 7 years in the Torah, it says that they were to blow the shofar on the day of Yom Kippur, and they were to announce that it was a year of rest. And then on I hope I'm not telling you guys wrong, but on the 50th year, they would blow it for Jubilee and for the release of all debts and the release of all slaves and the return of everyone. And that is probably one of my favorite things. Of course, that's not every year, but I love looking forward to it. And to me, when you get to that point where you blow the shofar, and I would recommend, by the way, let's talk about shofars for a second. Shofars are awesome. If you're going to get one, save your money up and get a big one. We were the cheap ones, and we bought this little tiny thing, and you can't blow it. It like gives you an aneurysm. So don't do that. Save your money like 2 or 3 years if you need to, and get the big one. It's very worth it. But anyway, if you'd like to blow a shofar, that to me is just the coolest thing, because now it's saying our affliction is over. He's paid the penalty, and now he's coming back, and he's going to feast with us. And now we're up to Sukkot, and I adore Sukkot. It's super fun. Rachel, if you're getting ready for Sukkot, and I know you have a lot of little kids, what do you do to make it special? Do you guys stay home? Do you go places? What do you do?
Well, our favorite thing to do is to hook up with other Torah observing families and hang out together and just fellowship, study together, sing together, praise together, worship together. It's really awesome. And probably the last one we had was the best so far. Usually before that, because our sukkahs so far haven't come out super great, but we still have fun making them. I have pictures of one the kids make, and it was earlier than that. So it works out better for us because we're in Michigan, it gets cold. So we usually sometimes we'll build stuff earlier and then go out and, find community to hang out with, because sometimes it doesn't work out to do both of those at the same time. So we've had super fun building and super fun getting together, which of course, and we did the actual tenting thing. Other friends of ours would do the camper or whatever. And I don't think it's about having to be in a tent, but it is fun for the kids. And it definitely is memorable to do those things, hanging out in your backyard, just taking food outside in something you've made and reading out there or having food out there is just, it's fun. And it's definitely memory building, and it helps you to think about that day in the end. So yeah, there's lots of fun stuff we've done.
Yeah, Rachel, I'm just going to tell you, every year you're going to say, that was the best one ever. And then next year you're going to say it again. That's cool. All right, Del, tell us about your Sukkot.
Well, this one has certainly had a lot of changes in it as well. We've had bigger groups where we had people come and join us on our property and camp out, and we had a big old tent out front, and we had lessons. People took the week off work, and we had a men's group and a women's group and a children's class, and it was a big honking deal. So we've had those years. We've had other years that it was pretty much just us, and we didn't find a fellowship group that actually was doing anything with this themselves until you guys a couple years ago. So a lot of our family traditions that we've created around Sukkot are all right here. We spend our time right here at home. So one of the things that we've done in previous years is we've explored, now some people don't want to do this. They don't want to explore why the Jews do what they do during Sukkot. But we find that it's kind of significant because, Jesus was attending a water pouring ceremony. What was that all about? Why were they doing that? And he had an announcement during the time. So kind of exploring what some of those ceremonies were. And we'll do that throughout the day to introduce your ideas of taste, sight, sound, and touch. I'll touch on those things during Sukkot that are taste-oriented. Again, it's got to be a holiday treat. It's not a holiday if there's not a special treat. If grandma hasn't made her peanut butter balls, if there's not a special cutout cookie, this kind of thing. In the Sukkot time, we do a lot of fruit harvest things. So we like having a lot of grapes piled up everywhere, fresh grapes available for people to eat. We like to make sure that the food that there's a chicken salad I make that has a lot of grapes in it, just keeping our mind on, that fall harvest time with the food. Towards the end of Tabernacles, when you have the 8th day, we do a big juice tasting where I buy every kind of juice I can get my hands on, and everybody samples just a little bit of it to figure out what their favorite juice is. But we'll fill the whole island and have a juice tasting. So there's taste. Sight. Okay, we've added to our decor. We had the angels and the stuff for the coming of the Messiah. So now we're going to add the manger and some shepherds and our sukkah outside. And we're going to talk about temporary dwellings, because for crying out loud, he was born in a temporary dwelling. His body was a temporary dwelling, and I'm a temporary dwelling. We're going to, with touch, we're going to make sukkahs, and we're going to make our sukkahs not only in the yard, but we're going to make our sukkahs with pretzels and chocolate. We're going to make our sukkahs with craft sticks and hot glue. Just any old way we can come up with making them. As far as sounds, we're carrying on with the festive music and the seasonal Yeshua's birth music. And then we kind of segue towards the end of the week and have more that's about his second coming, really.
I wanted to just second what you said about don't just do it outside, do it inside too, because that has been For us, we've spent the majority of our Sukkots in northern states like Minnesota and Wisconsin, which were even colder than here in Michigan. Michigan is notorious for terrible weather. And Katie Hearn, you had trouble with that one year. Can you tell about your Sukkots and how you do them here in our Michigan? And tell about your husband and his job and how do you handle that? Because that's something a lot of people might have to deal with.
Yes, we have had very interesting Sukkots. Our very first outside sukkah, actually, the Elliots built for us in our backyard because they were living with us. Can you hear me? Okay. And so, but the problem is we always, in our last house and in this house, we live in the middle of a field. We have a farmer that's properties by us. And if you know anything about fall, late fall, or in Michigan, that's windy time and rainy time. So we've had many sukkahs blow away. I mean, literally blow away. We've had some we've been able to catch and bring home and others not. It's a lot of fun though. We have a blast with it. My husband does work in corporate America, and so he doesn't often have time off from work for us to go away to gather with other people. And one of the things that's on our heart is we know other people can't get away for Sukkot either. And some people can't even put up a place, like they might live in an apartment or something. So we have loved offering our property if someone wants to build a sukkah in our yard and use it for their family when they're off work. And we've had people tent in our yard and come and go from work and school. And it's been such a blessing. We have two kitchens, so they use the other kitchen if they need it. But I wanted to talk about our very first sukkah before we had one outside. And that was when our family lived in Pennsylvania. And Anne was just introducing me to these things. And we built forts in the house. And we had forts everywhere because I have 15 kids. So they all had to have their own fort. So we had forts all over the house. And it was a lot of fun. And we would go eat lunch at, Stephen's fort today. And then we'll have supper tomorrow at Tyler's fort. So it was a lot of fun. And there's so many fun things you can do at Sukkot. Sukkot's my favorite holiday. I have to admit it. So.
Absolutely. Oh, it's definitely my favorite too. And I work full time. I work full time at home, but I work a lot of hours. And so one of the things I so look forward to on the feast is because I take those days off, and I just look so forward to that. And it reminds me, if I may be allowed to say it, it reminds me of working and getting that week off between Christmas and New Year's. That was exactly the same amount of time as Sukkot. From the first day, you have a great big first day, and you have a great big last day, but all the days in between are super fun. Some of the things our congregation does, we have a progressive dinner every year, and I get to go over to Dell's house and see her all her manger scenes. She has mangers everywhere. She is fantastic at remembering his birth in such a beautiful Torah way. And I love sitting with her mom because her mom, is living with them full time, and I love to sit with her, and she tells stories of things that she's learned in years past. So you get that wisdom from the older people down to the younger people. I just adore that. And we have so many other things. We have a chili cook-off. We have had talent shows. And you don't have to do all of that if you're just by yourself. Our family was by ourselves for many years until a year before we moved here was the first time we celebrated the feast with anyone else. So many years by yourselves. And yet you can still look forward to it with your family. You can have special traditions and memories and I think the key point that I'm thinking tonight, and then I'm going to let you guys each say one thing if you could to wrap up. And we do have a couple questions too. Maybe we should do that first. But the key point I'm taking away from tonight is that if you want it to be memorable, if you want it to have all the senses, you got to plan ahead. And I may be guilty because I'm thinking about work or I'm thinking about other things of waiting too long. You can't go out and buy silly string the night of, you have to have it ahead of time. And I think that's a godly trait that he wants to work on in our lives, of planning ahead and how it gets your eyes off of yourself. We do have a couple questions that were given to us, and both of them were about Shavuot. And I can understand that. Someone says, Shavuot is my biggest struggle. This is Pentecost in the summer. We're not really sure what to do to celebrate. And someone else asked, what kinds of special food do people prepare? Any of you guys willing to take that question? What do you do to celebrate for Shavuot? Del? Okay, go ahead, Del. I'm going to stick you on.
Okay, well, I'm going to address it as though it's just a family, not like a little collective, just a family. Probably one of our more memorable family choices was the year that we chose to look at it as a milk and meat sort of thing. And so the milk portion was milkshakes for breakfast and, maybe some cheesecake. I mean, we went all out, dairy extravaganza. And then later in the evening, because we grew in our understanding through the day, we had our meat, we had our roast beef dinner. And that was a real kind of a different thing for them, starting their day with desserts and ending with a healthy thing. No, that seems backwards. And so I think that's what made it memorable, was it was backwards. And I reminded them, as is Hebrew, it is backwards. But another neat thing is talking about, God called down and he spoke to the people. Moses ended up intervening, but he was speaking directly to the people. And so another year we worked really hard at the 3 days leading up to, they were supposed to get themselves clean and get ready to meet with God. And so there was the intense, we're gonna sanctify ourselves. We're gonna do some intense praying and some getting in the word and get ourselves ready to meet with God and what that looked like. So just some ideas. The best ideas are going to be read whatever is in that feast in the scriptures a week or two before you're going to do it, and kind of take out what are the elements that I see and what can I do with those elements. And your best ideas are going to come right from there.
Amen. I was going to mention, and this works really well for Shavuot or for Yom Teruah, depending on where you live. But if you want to have a mikvah or a baptism, as we used to call it, find a lake, find a pond, a river. A lake works really good, usually by Shavuot time, depends on the year. Our state parks opening and closing. So you have to look at your calendar and see when it would work and when it's going to be warm enough. But that is so meaningful. And to rededicate yourselves and to say, we dedicate ourselves again. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Anyone else, would you like to, let's wrap up. Okay. I guess let's just say some words of encouragement to people that when they look at all of this and they say, yeah, but you guys have been doing it for a long time. I'm so overwhelmed and I so much miss everything that I had before. Please help me not to miss it so much and to not be so overwhelmed. Rachel, can you start?
Sure. Well, since I'm the newbie, I can relate to those feelings. And I think kind of like Katie was saying, and I think she said it really well, just you don't have to do it perfectly. Nobody does. It can grow. It can grow with time. And I'm still learning. And I got the feasts all mixed up at the beginning. I didn't know what was what. Yeah, I think we're doing overall. So I'll tell you one thing that has definitely grown in me just doing these feasts is learning how to prepare, because that's something we don't do often. I mean, I guess, for the other like Christmas or whatever, we prepare for those. But there's so many different similarities. I guess that's what we were kind of talking about between them all. And like Dell was saying, which I really appreciated that with her 5 senses and getting the sight and taste and smells and all of that. It's really not all that different. It's really not, but it's, I think, more natural in many ways. And memories come really awesome. And when you start to develop kind of a habit, and it takes a while, for doing the feasts and just doing them in their seasons, I have a easier time remembering things that we've done, because I struggle with memory anyways. I don't know, that's my thing. But when you say, oh, well, we were doing this at that feast and it was during the spring, oh yeah, because we were doing Passover. I was a little bit after Passover, like a couple weeks. I mean, just those kind of things. It's almost easier to remember things when you start getting the flow of doing the feasts and having that just become more of a part of your lives. And again, I'm kind of going off of more of a reflection way, but I think as you go through it and as you learn it, and remember, it is a learning experience, you begin to see how God does amazing things through those periods of time. Like, there's things that God does in every believer, but they're easier to kind of recognize because I think his feasts are a way of showing what he's done with his people, what he's doing with his people, what he will do with his people. And those just start to click a little better as you just start applying them and start understanding them, and the understanding grows every year. I've only been 3 years, and I've been in it long enough to know that your understanding grows and it gets better and you learn more, and you don't have to worry about having it all together all at once. You just learn and you grow and you just begin to see things, and opens up your eyes to amazing things. I don't know if we're doing the whole wrap up thing, but a couple things. Yeah, we were talking about the preparation thing. I would talk again about the Torah Sisters website, but she was also very encouraging to me. Like, Amy was extremely helpful with Passover, and I think that's part of why that just picked up so easily for me, and I was able to add so much of that on my own. But having lists of things, making sure you're prepared ahead of time, just going on YouTube and making music videos and what's the word for the list?
A playlist.
Yes, playlist. For every different one of the feasts is just really awesome, and that grows too. You know, you get your favorite ones. We usually get stuff from Prince of Egypt and all kinds of other things Passover related. There's so many resources out there. And so creating the music, having fun foods that just go along with that. And you begin to have more of appreciation and develop foods that go with the seasons, which I don't know. I was kind of oblivious to maybe just a little bit before, definitely more so. So learning how to do things, springy, and having nice fresh fruits in the spring, that goes along with your senses. Later on, having the pumpkins, the squash, all the fruit that comes at the later part of the harvest, especially grapes, right? All of the foods just flow with the different feasts and the different meals that we have with them. And I don't know. But having being able to be prepared and have lists and being able to grow on it every year, and you begin to have all the memories and you can build on them. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not that fantastic at preparing ahead. And so one of the ideas my husband had was to just get a big Rubbermaid tote and put all the decorations for that holiday in that tote. They're down in the basement. They're all labeled. So as we see things on sale throughout the year, we can go, oh, we could get that for the Sukkot box, and you can stick that in there. And that it does build that anticipation. Del, do you have anything that you would like to share with us in closing?
I just would like to briefly remind people, don't feel pressure about the things that you're leaving and you're feeling sad or that you're at a loss about, and rather turn that around and focus on what is it that I'm feeling that I'm losing, and break it down to that element. And our family has gone through that. Each individual member, I mentioned, like, I'll use my mom as an example. She really missed the baking. She was just into those holiday cookies. And so once I understood that she was missing making her Christmas cookies, I said, oh, hey, Mom, we can have cookies for 7 different, well, 6, because Yom Kippur wouldn't be cool. All these different holidays. Come on, it's extra cooking. So once you are able to ascertain what it is that they're longing for and that they miss, you'll be able to figure out how to fill that gap and create the anticipation to be the preparer. You did a nice job in your last session, Anna, talking about being a servant to your family and using those serving hands. So that's kind of our role, is being that preparer to create that anticipation for them. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, well, I'm still working on that too. All right. Katie Hearn, do you have anything you'd like to close with?
I just want everyone to know that, I think it was Rachel who said way early in this session that you don't have to do it perfectly. In fact, we cannot do it perfectly. We do not live in the land. We do not have a temple, but we sure can have a lot of fun, and we sure can remember and do our best to obey and observe these things that Jehovah has given us out of his love for us, these feasts that are so exciting. And like Dell said, if you're missing something from your past, from the things that you feel like you're giving up, really find the heart of what you're missing. I'm not a big decorator day to day like Ann's husband Craig, but I like to decorate for the holidays, and that was something I was missing. And I realized I can still decorate. I can decorate every holiday, and it's even more beautiful and more fun because I know what it really means, and I know that it's to honor my creator. And I wanted to say that if you're struggling and how to explain to your loved ones, well, we're not coming to Christmas this year, or we're not going to come to Easter, just really pray about that and let Jehovah show you how to lovingly say those things and make days for them. For my family, my mother-in-law and my mother really, really missed giving my kids gifts. So I said, you can give them to them at the biblical feast time, or you can give them to them anytime. And they made up their own special days with the kids. My mother-in-law comes in January. She usually picks a day that she just comes, and it's a day for her to be their grandma and have fun and play with her. And my mom and dad do the same thing. And they just pick a random day and they call it Grandparents' Day. No, it's not the national holiday, Grandparents' Day, but they just made it up. And don't make it a stressful thing. Make it an easygoing thing. Talk to your family in love and kindness, and talk to your children that are older who may be upset about the changes with love and gentleness. And you'll find that because you're speaking truth, because you're seeking truth, that they will receive these things a little more graciously than if you are real harsh, like, well, we're not coming for Christmas. And so just, pray about it and let the Holy Spirit lead and guide you in all these things.
I was trying to look on my phone real quick and just in conclusion, see if I could find where it says it. But a verse that really helped me out so much, and let me see, I'm just going to take 1 second. I think I'm almost there. And I'm not going to find it. Maybe someone in the chat. It's in Deuteronomy. It says that he has given us his Torah, and it is for our good. And those first years, I have a friend that told me to do this, so I'm going to give her credit. Her name is Emily, but it is so true. If you will tell yourself that he gave you that Torah for your good, there is not a single command in there that would ever harm you or cause you grief or sadness. Every single thing is for your good. And the next time those feelings come up that you're like, oh, I'm missing out something, or I'll never have all this ready, or I'll never do it right, I'm not as good as that family over there, you need to remind yourself, no, this is for our good. He means this to help us, and it's going to be awesome, okay? And it's all about changing your attitude. I also want to point out in the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, the passage I said you could look at, that it does really seem like a command to assemble with others as much as possible. Now, there have been times and I think for every single family in this chat, that we have only had ourselves to assemble with. By all means, do not do it by your lonesome. Get at least with your family, any children, anyone you can get with you, do it with them. And that is for your good. And the more people you can get with, the better. Move mountains to get to other people. I can say from experience, it is worth moving to another state just so you can have fellowship. I mean that with all my heart. So, and I know that's not possible for everyone. And so sometimes that means that we have to look forward to that day when we're going to have that. It's coming, okay? He's going to bring us all back and reunite us. But at this moment, do everything you can to be with others. I think that would be my number one recommendation, because no matter how badly you flop it, somebody always says something or shares something at the feast that you go, oh my word, that was awesome, and that made the whole thing worth it. I can't wait till next year. That was the best ever. So I would recommend that if you are all by yourself, and even if you're not, if you have a Pinterest board that you have built for the feast and you want to share it with others, please send those. If you want to post those Pinterest links below this video until there's a million of them, that'd be fantastic. Everyone can come and we can go find those. Maybe you have a website. Rachel, you have a blog. And I think if we haven't posted it yet, make sure we post it. You are putting all these links together for all the different feasts, and she wants to be a place where we can all find things. Torah Sisters, we mentioned her. We have the free stuff that is in our goodie bag. There are several things for the feast there, so go check out the goodie bag. It's free. And we want to help each other. We want to lift each other up. So thank you so much for coming, everybody. Thank you. I hope we've inspired you. I hope that you will spend some time this weekend, get your calendars out, start making your list. So you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I so much appreciate it. It was 100 times better because you guys were here. So thank you. Shalom.